Welcome to Living the American Dream, a year abroad, where we dive into the experiences I had living in the US as an exchange student. I'm your host Elia, and today we're going to explore my student exchange itself, from preparations to coming back to my home country, Germany. I want to start out with a question that I've been asked a ton of times. How did the idea or opportunity even come about in the first place? To be honest, it was mostly luck. In 2022, I had the opportunity to do a 2-week exchange together with my class. At that time, we were also in South Dakota, but not in the big Rapid City. Instead, we were in Dupree, a small town in the middle of the state with around 500 inhabitants. This may not sound like anything special at first, but to me, this small town was the beginning of my interest in a long-term student exchange. Dupree for me was a huge milestone. It showed me how different life around the world and even just in one state can be. During my time there, I lived on a farm together with a friend from Germany. This farm was, to us, definitely no regular farm. With over 1,000 cows and huge fields all around, this was the real cowboy lifestyle which is often shown in movies. Anyways, after my 2 weeks there and some sightseeing in the Badlands as well as visiting Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse, it was time for all of us to go back home. While driving to the airport, all the memories we had made and all the things we had learned rushed through our heads. It was a very emotional moment for the most of us, and in that moment I realized that I want to do this again, and not just for a few weeks. This was the time when I brought it up to my exchange coordinator. I wanted to do a long-term student exchange. I talked to her for the whole car ride back to the airport, and as soon as I got back home to my parents, I started talking to them. I want to do this, I'm ready for this. I kept on saying to my parents, and after some more nagging and arguing, I finally got their approval. So, now we come to probably the hardest and most energy draining experiences involved in doing student exchange. Preparing and filling out paperwork is a huge part of an exchange. Before anything, I first needed to get accepted into a program. I did my exchange with the so-called GAP program, so it's like the German-American Partnership Program, with which we also did the 2-week exchange. The benefit of GAP is that it's rather cheap when comparing it to other programs especially, but it also limited me to the state of South Dakota. But I didn't really have a problem with that at all, since South Dakota just has a country charm that I really love. So after getting accepted into the program, there was a ton of legal stuff that I need to take care of. To name a few, I needed health insurance abroad, a phone contract, in my case I also needed a student visa, which I also had to get certified for, more legal stuff about rules I would need to follow during my exchange, and more medical forms I needed to fill out so we could decide what shots I still need before going, and if I'm allergic to anything and all that stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Now, the last step was to find a host family. For that, I need to write a letter about my hobbies, my family, and just general facts about myself like my favorite movie, game, food, and more. With that letter, my exchange coordinator now started looking for host families in South Dakota. This is probably the most difficult step before doing the exchange, since you need a family that you can get along with and which can at the same time provide for you, and maybe even show you around the state or country if you're lucky. So, to assure that you're going to get a good host family, the coordinator visits the families and talks to them. In my case, I even had an interview over Zoom before visiting. After all those preparations, I could now finally book a flight. In my case, I flew out of Frankfurt straight to Minneapolis in Minnesota, where I got picked up by my host family. Why Minnesota, you ask? To be honest, I was extremely lucky with my host family. Not only did we get along very well, they also, let's just say, had the resources to more than just take care of me. We often went on trips, and they even had a lake house up at the Cross Lake in Minnesota. So that's where I spent the first 3 to 4 weeks before driving around 15 hours to Rapid City in South Dakota. Okay, so now that we've arrived at my second home in Rapid City, I'd like to introduce you to my host family. I had 2 sisters. Emilia, or Emmy, was the younger one. She was still in 8th grade when I was there. My other host sister was Ada. She was the one who always drove us to school since we were both in 10th grade. My host mother's name was Jan. She usually took care of the household while my host father Rob worked from early in the morning until late in the afternoon. We also had 3 pets, a dog called Milo who was unfortunately deaf, and 2 wonderful cats called Phoebe and Trixie. While staying with them, I really got to know them and we got along very well. We obviously had some different viewpoints, but I will talk about those and my host family in more detail in my 3rd episode. All I will say right now is that we eventually figured out everything, and after a few months their home really felt like my own home as well. Living in a different home also meant taking on different chores. While back in my real home I didn't have a lot to do, here in the US I had some work waiting for me. Even though I basically had the whole basement to myself, with my own bathroom, workout and relax space, this also meant that I had to take care of a lot of different things. For example, some chores I had to do were cleaning the bathroom as well as vacuuming the basement. Overall, I got very lucky with my host family. I got along with them very well and they even took me on all kinds of different trips and showed me basically everything I wanted to. I'm very glad that I was able to live with them, and if they're listening to this right now, I just want to say thank you for taking me in and taking care of me for a whole year. I bet it wasn't very easy. Okay, host family check. Next up, I want to talk about the language barrier and kind of how to overcome it. Many people ask me, wasn't it hard to get adjusted to the language? Or they tell me that they could never get comfortable speaking English every day. I have to say that this can be true. I was lucky because I was already pretty good at English before going there, and obviously the 2-week exchange had already taught me a lot. However, even with all of the knowledge I had in the English language, it was still one of the hardest things to overcome. Especially in my first few days there, my mouth and brain were tired of speaking English at the end of the day. My strong German accent also didn't help, which meant I often had to repeat myself or describe different words that I couldn't think of. After more time passed, I got pretty used to it, and the only problem I really had was my accent, which I couldn't do much about except just talk more. So, what advice can I give you after having to speak English every day for a whole year, you might ask? Just be confident, speak up, and try not to eat up your words, especially in the first few weeks. I realized about halfway through my exchange year how much my English skills had actually improved without me noticing. I could speak way more fluently. I didn't need to actually translate it in my head, I just started thinking in English. It all comes with time, and especially if you're doing an exchange year, almost everybody understands your situation. And if you ever don't know how to say something, just use a translator. Okay, to get finished with this whole language segment, I want to just answer questions I've been asked a lot about this. First question, do you think in English? Yes, I do, often without realizing it. Second question that I got a lot of times, do you forget German or English words? Yes, this happens a lot, especially when writing something. I, for example, often forget a German word, so I have to translate it from English back to German. It's kind of sad now that I think about it. Okay, on to third question. Can you say something in English? This is a question I get asked many times. Yes, I actually can say things in English. I'm not lying when I say I've spoken it every day for a year. Just give me something that I can translate it for you. And the last question I got asked many times was, do you think you're going to lose your English skills over time? I think this is a very tough question for me to answer. To a degree, I'm gaining back my extreme German accent, but I haven't noticed an actual loss of my English skills. They're pretty much still the same as they were in the US. Okay, next up I want to talk about, in my opinion, one of the most important things when doing an exchange year. Personal growth and new perspectives are for some the main reason to do an exchange year, besides living the American dream and going to an American high school. I don't want to get too in-depth talking about this, but I think it's important to note that an exchange year can extremely change a person. Not only physically, but also mentally. I went to the US when I was 15 years old. I wasn't super smart, I didn't know a lot about the world in general. Now I'm 17, I'm still not super smart and still don't know a lot about the world, but what I do know is that my exchange year changed me. It made me more independent, it made me want to experience and try new things. It also made me more culturally and socially aware. I learned a lot about different social rules and often had to defend my own views and understand and accept other views on different topics. Having to use a different language while also living in a completely new environment and figuring out many things myself, especially at school, also made me more confident. Another thing I want to mention is that during an exchange year, my advice would be to focus more on friendships and activities instead of grades or anything that doesn't really matter for your future. Yes, you might finish your school year with bad grades, but at least in my case, those grades did not matter at all. Sadly, at the time I realized this, 4 months had already gone by. So in my second semester you could definitely see my grades drop, but who cares? In the end, you want to have as much fun and as many memories with your friends as possible. That's what counts. As you can see, there are a lot of different positive effects that an exchange year can have, which you might not even realize. Most of the things I just told you about came very naturally. I simply had no choice but to do all of this, otherwise my exchange year might not have been as much fun. I should say that it wasn't always easy. There's a lot of things that I had to get adapted to or that I didn't like at first. However, looking back at it, I'm happy I decided to take those steps and also do things I might not have enjoyed, but at least I tried them out, right? Okay, so we've talked about how to get into an exchange program, about the host family, about some experiences, and now let's talk about the hardest mental part of an exchange, the departure. Leaving basically a second life behind, saying goodbye to your friends, to your new family, to your daily life was one of the hardest challenges I had ever faced in my life. All year long I could see the end approaching, telling myself, oh, I still have 10 months left, oh, I still have 4 months left, oh, I still have 1 month left, oh, I only have 1 week left, going to, oh, I'm leaving tomorrow. Many people told me to cherish my time in the US, since otherwise it's going to fly right past me. I did not take that advice to heart. Looking back at it, my time there now feels like 2 weeks at most. I did so many things and simply did not really take it in enough and really cherish even the normal days. Living in the US is an experience for itself, and if you ever get to live there, cherish every single moment. Otherwise, you will regret it a lot. Returning back home felt both familiar and strange. Old habits resurfaced, but you've changed. It's like you see a whole world with fresh eyes, focusing on completely different things in your daily life. Missing that weekly trip to Taco Bell or that disgusting taste of American Coke and chocolate. Then there are also new elements. Your old classmates graduated and you feel like you're behind everyone. Going back into your old daily life almost feels impossible because you just miss the American life too much. It's definitely another challenge that can be very difficult. I personally had some troubles at first, but with some time everything heals back together. Additionally, there's a ton of positive things as well. For example, seeing all your old friends again, or going out to parties which you couldn't do in the US. Also seeing your family again, and in my case I even met a new family member. A new dog which my family had adopted just a few weeks after I left for America. Returning home brings a lot of positive as well as negative emotions with it. On one hand, you can see everybody you've been missing again, and on the other hand, you miss everyone and everything in the US. Another question I get asked a lot is, what do you like more, the US or Germany? And I almost think it is impossible to answer this question. Both are amazing, both have people that you love and memories that you will never forget. The best way to answer this question is both. I know I could never decide between the two, but I know that I will always be welcomed wherever I decide to go. Okay, so that was my first episode. I've talked about my student exchange in general and given you some advice if you want to do one yourself. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for tuning in to Living the American Dream, a Year Abroad. See you next time when we'll talk about the American high school.